welcome to The Redshift, your connection to your piece of the sky. I'm your host, Emma Miller. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to all of the new shifters for making our very first official ISA broadcast one of the best ones yet. I cannot wait to continue to give you exclusive content. Speaking of, it's time for us to hop right into our ISA announcements. This week, we will be releasing an astronaut bio of one of our first 4 astronauts and our Mission 4 commander, Mithi Mabaya. I think you'll find that there was a very cool reason that she was handpicked by Aiden Luzariga to lead the mission, and I can't wait for you guys to all find it out coming very soon. Also, I was told I can't talk too much about it, but I do know that there is something exclusive coming for you stakeholders very soon. And that does it for our ISA announcements for the week. Now, as promised, each week we are going to get some juicy stories from real ISA personnel, whether that's folks at Mission Control 2 in Seoul, on board the Alliance for Convoy in transit, or, like this week, a direct report from an astronaut actually on the Red Planet. I know, so exciting! The round-trip lag makes it difficult to hold a real conversation back and forth, so we've asked the astronauts to send a quote-unquote Mars diary, and the first entry is from, drumroll please, Mission 3 botanist, Patricia Holzer. One of the things that I like most about Patricia is that she tells it straight. If this were a regular PR effort, they'd try to tie it up with a pretty pink bow. But the truth is that there's some conflict in the colony, and Patricia is not the one to let a sleeping dog lie, as you will hear. Keep in mind that everything you will hear will be in Patricia's own words. I think that's enough introduction, so let's get right into it. This is Patricia's Mars Diary. Is it wrong that I think we should have accountability? Other people might say it's not so important, I know. But to me, it wasn't glass that was broken only. It was my trust. I say this from the start. 3 days ago, we made something beautiful here on Mars. A piece of glass made from Martian sand. And then last night, one of us smashed it. One of the 12. Who? I think I know, but nobody will say. Others, they say it's a small thing. Let it go. But for me, it's not so small. Most of them, they have always been safe, been strong. They have never had someone break into the house, write on the walls, break a window, take a bike. When that happens, you're scared. People say, oh well, it's only a little money, you weren't hurt, they stole not much, get over it. But you don't, because you're not safe. And now here they say, Holzer, let it be. I say, until we know the truth, we are damaged. The lock on our house is broken, and we won't be safe until we find who this person is and why they did what they did. You say if you think I am right or wrong. I did not make the glass, but in a way I started the whole project. You see, in the long run, we can't have all our food dependent on inflatable greenhouses sent from Earth. Anytime they wanted, they could stop sending new ones and wait for the old ones to break or wear down, and then we starve to death. People say Earth would never do that. But my mother was a refugee, so I know what happens when you let someone else have the power of life and death over you. One day I was talking with Ida. Back in the early days when we were on the ship, maybe we did not get along the best. She is very quick, very adventurous. I am just patient. One thing, the next thing, and so on. Ida, you know, she was on TV. The one they did interviews with, the face of Mission 3. I'm not the sort of person that is the face of anything. But on Mars, she worked hard. She earned our trust. She had great energy all day, and then at night she would tell stories about racing cars or teach us dirty Italian drinking songs. She left someone back on Earth, another astronaut, who would not come until Mission 4, so they would be separate for 2 Earth years. First times, I think she didn't miss him so much. Too much to do, too many adventures to have. But then he got cut from Mission 4. She took it hard. After my family left Bulgaria, we moved to Bremerhaven, to a rough part of town. My brother got picked on, so I got in a lot of fights. I learned this about getting hit. The shock is first, like lightning, and then pain is the thunder that comes behind. That's what it was like for Ida. You could see it in her eyes. This is what I have been telling you, I said. You let your life depend on what someone decides 60 million kilometers away, and then, oh, so sorry, some important person somewhere made a decision and you are a refugee now, living in a hard place where you don't know the language and nothing grows. It was this time we became good friends. Maybe I'm not so funny as some of the others, but I knew what it was like for her a little bit. I know what it is like to be alone. Now, she was always trying to figure out what day it was back on Earth. I told her to forget Earth time. Live on Mars time. If it is Carnival in Venice or Christmas in Rome, who cares? It is a discipline for me. The only calendar I have is a Mars calendar. This is what is real now. Then suddenly on Earth there was an accident. Her man was back on mission 4. She opened up like a flower. She said to me, I am so happy, Patrizia. She always says it with this, Patrizia. How can I make you happy too? So I said I wanted to make a vegetable frame, one we could build on Mars. So even if another rocket never came, I could make some cucumber, some tomatoes, some quinoa and beans. And Ida asked if a frame was like a tiny greenhouse. And I said that was close enough. And she said to make such a thing, you need glass. To make glass, you need sand. And sand, Mars might not have a magnetosphere or oxygen or all the water you want, but sand, that we have. How we made the glass, this might be too much science, but Mithy said it's okay and people can just skip this part later if they don't care. But maybe it gives you a sense of the kinds of things we do here, how hard it is to make a world from only 12 people and red rocks. The colony's power, and I just want to interject really quickly and say that Patricia wanted to make very clear that it is a colony and not a base like some of the others still call it. She said, and I quote, "We must learn to say colony. Mars and I are very patient. We will win." Pardon the interruption. Back to the story. We make energy for the colony in a molten salt reactor. One of the things it runs is an electric furnace. The furnace was spec'd to bake bricks and even smelt the ore Alex is supposed to find, so it runs very hot. To melt sand for our furnace, this is not a problem. To make things, you need a workshop. If you don't want to work in a spacesuit all day, you need to keep it pressurized. Back in Mission 2, when it was just Mithy and Aurora and Alex and John, the workshop was in a hab, and keeping it a good pressure was every day John's personal nightmare. Too high, it costs energy to maintain and you increase the risk of leaks. Too low, you have to add lots of oxygen to the mix to breathe. And the things you do in a machine shop make sparks, so high oxygen is bad. The way the reactor works, you boil salt and run it through pipes to a room where there is Mars ice. The ice turns to steam and drives a turbine. The turbine sends the power. Then they have to cool the water down. Transferring that heat is how we keep warm. Basically, the whole colony has nuclear radiators. Maybe it's because the workshop is close to the turbine, or maybe it's because John Alves is from Brazil and hates the cold, but the workshop is always the warmest place in the colony. The engineers wanted to call it Vulcan's Forge, but now we just call it Vulcan. They say the next workshop will be Romulus. We will see. So, to make glass, you need two things only. 1 part sand and what they call flux, which is some kind of carbonate. The sand part, this is easy. For the flux, Ida said we could recycle our old CO2 scrubbers. New, these are made from lithium hydroxide, but they turn into lithium carbonate after use. She announced the plan at dinner. Hanzu said we could make glass stones for a game of Go. And Ida said that Martian glass, well, that's a souvenir the colony could sell for big money back on Earth. Then Aurora said we could make glass plates and bowls because nobody with a soul wants to eat off of plastic. But John Alves said no. John always sees what could go wrong. He said, what if Mission 4, there's some disaster, it crashes or something, and there are no new scrubbers coming? Then we will need to recycle these ones. And then Alex said if Mission 4 crashed, we are going to have bigger problems. And John said not being able to breathe is a pretty big problem. Also, John said if he had a soul, it would have died from eating meat paste from a tube for 5 years. But Mithy said Ida could go ahead as long as she got her scheduled work done first. And Mithy is the mission commander, so that was that. The first time we tried, the glass came out lumpy and full of bubbles. Also green, and you couldn't see through it. Alex said it was green because of all the iron in the sand, but he had an idea about that. And also, if we wanted to see through the glass, we would need borax, and he had an idea about that too. Before he was an astronaut, Alex was a chemist for a mining company. Of all of us, Alex and Ida are the ones who leave camp the most. Ida takes any excuse to drive, but Alex is always out looking for ice or minerals or, well, the rest is his business. But 2 days later, he came back from a trip with borax, or actually tin chalconite, which is borax that has dried up. It is very dry on Mars. So many nights I dream it is raining here, as it used to do in winter in Bremerhaven. But when I wake up, it is always very dry. So, Ida tried the special sand and the tin chalconite, and this time the glass was like pale gold, and you could see through it. We took it outside and looked at the world, which turned gold. And turned us gold too, so in our spacesuits we looked like angels or aliens. A special nice thing we didn't know would happen? It is more protective against UV than Earth glass. I think this is maybe because of all the iron in the sand. But Alex said maybe Mars knows what we need and is trying to help us. I don't think that is true, but it is a nice idea. With some help from Mithy, Alex also found a new mix of, quote, Martian adobe. This is a kind of concrete, actually, made with sulfur and Martian soil. The adobe could hold a pane of glass for my vegetable frame snug, but not too tight like the lead they used to hold the first stained glass windows in Augsburg Cathedral more than 400 years before Galileo made his telescope and saw the moons of Jupiter. So the first piece of our Martian cucumber frame was a shining golden thing, like a piece of stained glass from a church window 1,000 years old. That night I poured out a little batch of beer I had been making. We toasted that with only a computer and one nuclear reactor, Alex had pulled Mars into the Iron Age. Then we sang a very naughty Italian song, and John Alves drank as much as anyone, and more than some. The next day, we went to find a spot to make a vegetable frame, and found a place with good sun, and left the glass there overnight to see if it would crack in the cold. The next day, I was tending to my beans when Ida came up to say that there was a miracle, and I had to come see. She took me to the greenhouse spot, and Alex too, and John came because Alex was going, and Aurora because she likes to help and also to make sure nobody is breaking the rules. The church window was where we'd left it. It had not cracked in the cold. Instead, it was covered in strange marks and patterns. Ida said it was a sign. Of what? I don't know. And you could tell that her head was joking, but her heart was not. It's frost, said John Alves. I agreed, but it's not like any frost I've ever seen. There's not so much where John grew up in Brazil, but we had not so much money when I was a girl, and the local boys used to throw rocks at our windows. In winter, we had to patch them with plastic wrap. So I know what frost on a window looks like. Aurora explained it wasn't water frost, though. It's CO2 frost. CO2 is different than water crystals. Water crystals are hexagonal, but CO2 form in cubes, like salt. Alex likes to joke about aliens on Mars, how they are playing with us. He said this might be how they talk. Then Ida laughed and they bumped helmets, which we do sometimes, like a high five. Except for John Alves. You can hit these helmets with a sledgehammer and they won't crack, but when Alex goes in for a head bump, you can tell John thinks it's going to smash like an egg. Then we looked at the frost and said what we saw, like children seeing animal shapes in the clouds. Alex said he thought it was a Martian poem of greeting. To me, it looked like strands of kelp. Aurora said it looked like carbon dioxide crystals. Aurora is quite precise. Ida said it reminded her of the Madonna and Child. John said he saw a rain of debris falling on a bunch of unprepared astronauts. At the time, I thought he was joking. At the time, it felt like we were bonding, yes? We were here in this place, Mars, and we were sharing something nobody on Earth would ever see, and that made us close. Which was why it felt so bad the next day when I went back and found our glass broken. Not cracked, smashed. I could see the rock someone had thrown through it. Now, everyone says they don't know what happened, but someone is lying, of course. I went to John to talk about it, and he brushed me off. Things break, Holzer. When he first got to Mars, he called everyone by their last names, like he did in the Air Force. Now he has loosened up, but when he calls me Holzer, it means I should shut up, toe the line, act like a soldier. It's just a piece of glass, he says. We have other things to worry about. Yes, so there are other things to worry about. This is Mars. But is there anything more important? It's not just the meanness, it's the lie. Hanzu, he's the other botanist. We talk in the greenhouses. He says there are only a few of us. We depend on one another so much. We need to get along. He says I should let a little thing like this go. To me, it is the opposite. My life depends on 11 other people. How can I trust them if they can't be honest about something like this? I think we need to find out who broke the glass and hold them accountable. Am I wrong for that? Wow. There is a lot to chew on there, folks. What do you all think? Is Patricia right to want to get to the bottom of this? Or is it more like one of those things where your little brother is being a brat, but going full witch hunt just makes everything worse? I know I have my opinion, but I really want to hear your opinion. So, after our break and our word from our sponsors and our Martian weather report, we'll be back to talk about what we think. Who do you think is in the wrong? Should Patricia just let it go? Let's talk about it. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to look up into the night sky and see the Earth hanging over you? Ever dream of being part of a truly legendary moment in human history? Like solving problems with your head and your hands? If this sounds like you, then ISA Vulcan wants you. A half day up the Peruvian Andes from Cusco, what was once an abandoned mine has been reclaimed and refitted as the ISA's world-class training center for astronauts with an engineering focus. Working in the cold, thin air isn't for everyone, but it's the best training you'll find for the cold, dry climate of Mars. To become self-sustaining, Mars will need new, inventive ways to find raw resources and turn them into the building blocks of mankind's next home. Engineers trained at ISA Vulcan will lead that charge. Although finding water and mineral resources will be critical for the success of Mars colony, ISA Vulcan is about far more than mining. We are big believers in hands-on learning. If you can't get to Luna Base, you won't find any study program in the world that gives you more practical hands-on experience building, operating, and repairing equipment in low gravity and atmospheric pressure situations. The ISA is all about a shared vision, and our training is specifically designed to reward team players. The bond continues at night with food, music, and the kind of camaraderie you can only find in teams striving for true greatness. If you're spending your days designing marketable objects of no real value, if your work mostly goes into making a few rich folks richer, if your current job leaves you feeling as if the best of you is, well, left untapped, sign up to be screened as an Interplanetary Space Alliance astronaut trainee with an engineering focus. ISA Vulcan, the only logical choice. And now for the weather. Notable last week was a small cluster of seismic events, with a big shock at almost 3.1 on the Richter scale, centered 380 kilometers away from Mars base, followed by a scatter of smaller Mars quakes. No damage to the base, but an engineer on a scouting expedition did report the emergence of a new sinkhole about 15 kilometers from the base. It's unknown whether this was related to the seismic activity or not. Next week, models predict nighttime lows around 70 degrees below 0 Celsius, with daytime atmospheric temperatures around minus 35, although ground temperatures in the sun may approach minus 5 to 10. All right, well, that was our weather report for the week, which was very exciting. I'm glad to hear that things are looking a little bit warmer for our astronauts. But I think it's time that we hop into talking about our letter from our astronaut this week. I really loved getting to share that with you all. I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I don't know. I'm so torn. I don't know how you all feel about this. I think I side with Patricia. I don't want to be too negative, and I don't want to assume the worst, but it does feel like it's important for someone to take accountability, right? Don't you feel like someone should really step up and say, hey, I put a hole through this pane of glass? I feel like they really can't move forward until they have that sort of understanding of what the situation was. But what do you all think? Are you guys feeling like they should just let it go? I can understand if you are agreeing with John Alvis in terms of, maybe there are more important things to deal with currently on Mars. If you have any thoughts, you're welcome to share them. If you just comment in ISA Comms, all you have to do is /ask and then send a message, and then I'll be able to read it. See how you're feeling. I do see that there's something weird going on in ISA Comms, though. I don't really know what's happening. It looks like some kind of message, but I'm not sure. Maybe you guys can figure out what the messages are saying? I'm not so sure I can figure it out. I certainly won't be able to figure it out while we're live together. Oh, I'm very interested to see what they're saying, though. I wonder if there's a way for someone to maybe take the blame for the shattered pane of glass. Even if John Alvis didn't do it, which it kind of sounds like he might have, if he even stepped forward and just said, hey, this was something that I did and took the blame, maybe it would help to patch the kind of broken hole, literally broken hole. I'm not sure, though. I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts. It's a little bit hard, I think, to pass blame maybe on who is in charge or who is responsible for this. I do actually, sorry, while I'm looking at the ISA Comms channel, Minnie looks like maybe is figuring out what the messages are, which is amazing because that will be huge if we can figure out what those messages are. You have a decoder? I think, wow. It's cool to see you writing back. Hopefully whoever's writing to you is understanding what you're writing back to them. If you have a link to a decoder, I'd probably take one of those too. Maybe you can figure some things out. Oh, I'm so intrigued. If I wasn't running a radio show, I would be right there with you trying to figure out the messages. Should I, though? I like the suspense. Well, that's up to you. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to tell me. But it is fascinating that you're figuring it out. Hopefully figuring it out. I don't know if you're figuring it out or not. It sure looks like you are. The suspense is nice, though. I understand and I appreciate that. Always a good little bit of suspense thrown in there. The fracture is now symbolic, but without responsibility could become a real problem. Bright Eyes, I agree with you completely. I think that's the real problem here, is that in the end, it's something so small and something so seemingly insignificant. It's easy for them to replicate what they're working on right now, but it's the symbolic lack of trust. It's really, I hope somebody steps forward and accepts the blame or accepts their fault in the situation. I know for me, even if I was on Earth, if someone broke something of mine, it would really, really hurt. I can't imagine how Patricia is feeling, especially since this was kind of her, not necessarily brainchild, but definitely done for her. I agree with you again. The deeper concern is who or why. Jealousy is an interesting question. What do you think? Do you think it's jealousy of Patricia, or do you think it's jealousy of something else? I guess there could be jealousy that project is getting more attention than other projects, but I wonder if there was another project at the time that maybe would have been, I don't know. That's such an interesting thing. I wonder what kind of jealousy could have led to that kind of behavior. Stephanie said, resources can't just be wasted that way on Mars. It's irresponsible. I agree. I guess I don't exactly know how glass works, but I feel like I've seen glass makers on Earth repurpose shattered glass, so maybe they could reuse the glass that was blown, but it is irresponsible. And it just puts a weird pressure on the whole group, the 12 of them. I knew what you meant, irresponsible. I'm not sure. I really hope, obviously, so this is our story from the week and our message from them, but I am curious if we'll get some kind of follow-up. Maybe someone will share something in a future message, or maybe I'll get a chance to talk to Patricia again and figure out if she's hopefully come to peace with this or found some solution. It's just such a strange position to be in, and one that is so unique to, obviously, these astronauts. They're the only 12 astronauts there right now. They have to deal with all of this and deal with the repercussions of it. I'm really interested in seeing who our next week's letter will come from, who the next diary will come from. I really do wonder if they will be in some way connected. Are you guys curious about who's going to send the letter next week? Do you wonder if they're going to have something to do with this situation? Do you think they're going to just have other thoughts? I'm very intrigued. I'm going to re-listen, try to break the code with Minnie's help, and post some deeper takes later. And very curious on who's next up. I appreciate that. Well, I like to hang out in this Discord channel, so if you have any deeper takes later, send them here so that I can read them as well, because I would love to see what you guys have to say and what your thoughts are. Oh, there's more messages coming through. I'm so interested in what they're saying. Hopefully you all can help figure out what they're saying, and you can share them with me. I'm fascinated. I keep staring at these messages, willing my brain to automatically decipher them, and unfortunately it doesn't appear that my brain is capable of doing that without help. So I'm trying, just staring, boring into the typing. Well, I think that this leaves us in a good place to ruminate. Hopefully you guys will be able to re-listen to the podcast a little bit later. Maybe think a little bit more about what our answers would be in terms of what we think is the best way moving forward. I'm very intrigued in seeing what comes next. I hope you guys are as well. Hopefully next week you get some sort of explanation from our next astronaut letter. I'm so excited to read it. I'm so excited to receive it and to share it with all of you. But for right now, I think that we are going to call the Redshift broadcast for the day. Just like last time, we will be transcribing the broadcast. We also will be posting a full recording. So you'll be able to hear that and listen to that and read it very soon. And with that, we are going to head on out. Thank you so much, Bright Eyes. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. And I will see you all next week. Have a good day. Bye, shifters.